Nawioan Naomi Bailey, Nihia au Cree Métis OG, Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. Nimawidian Ota Snanemo, Aske Mina Ota Métis, Quaguicoto. Nia Miwidian Ota Wijian, Sagatine, Kiskiamawin Ota Aski. My name's Naomi Bailey. I'm Cree Métis from Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. I want to acknowledge that I am on the traditional unceded territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nation. This is also the chosen home of the Métis people, and I am honored to be able to live, love, and learn on their land. Just before we begin, I would like to recognize that today is the National Day of Awareness for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, Girls, and Two-Spirited People. And it's a day to honor and remember missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirited people, and to hold space for them and for those who are grieving, and to demand that we end this ongoing systemic result of systemic policies, racist policy. I'm wearing red today for the red dress. I don't have a dress, so I'm putting red on in honoring the missing and murdered women and girls and Two-Spirited people. So thank you. Moving on to additions to the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or changes in order to the agenda? I don't hear any objections, so if none, may I have a motion to approve the agenda? Okay, I have Greg putting a motion in. Do we have a seconder? And Chantal Morvay, Trustee Morvay is seconding it. Thank you. So next up is approval of the agenda. So we've approved the agenda, sorry. It's been a while since I've done this, so I'm just getting back into it. Approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes? Trustee Morvay is putting in a motion, and a seconder is Trustee Robinson. And Greg Keller has just said we need to approve the agenda. I thought we had done that, sorry. You're right. Approving of the agenda, let's go back, I'm sorry. Are all those in favor of approving the agenda? Okay. Seeing as there's nobody objecting, then the agenda has been approved, and now we'll go to the approval of the minutes. And we had, I think it was Trustee Morvay said that put the motion in to approve the minutes, and I believe Mark Robinson seconded it. If anybody is opposed, please put it in the chat. Seeing none, the approval of the minutes has been done. Next, we're moving to presentations, and it doesn't look like we have any today. And so staff senior reports, and I'm going to turn this over to Deputy Superintendent Laura Tate.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. I just realized I have a lot of pattern on right now. I hope it's okay. It's so much, I think, on the glasses and in the shirt. Okay, so thank you so much, Chair. I'm going to speak to you tonight for just a few minutes around the Department of Learning Services operational plan. And so we are all very familiar with the strategic plan, the board strategic plan, where the board's purview, of course, is around the mission and the vision and the goals, etc. And from there, we know that it's the superintendent's responsibility, staff responsibility to then take those goals and objectives and move them into strategies, actions, metrics, etc. And so we know that there are a number of plans that feed into and attempt to meet the goals and objectives of the board's strategic plan. And this evening, I'm going to sort of mine down and give you some more information around the Learning Services Operational Plan, how it's created, and a little bit around what you can expect to see and hear during the Education Committee meetings. So, when the Department of Learning Services gathers to plan each year, this includes both action and budget decisions in the planning. And this is where essentially Learning Services brings the strategic plan to life within our purview in the district and in schools, of course. And in addition to pursuing the board goals, we also provide organizational leadership or leadership around the operations of the district. And that's sort of the outer ring that you see there on the graphic. And so I'll just take a quick moment and sort of define that a little bit more for you. So we take lots of things into consideration. And one of the pieces that's really important to acknowledge are these aspects of organizational leadership. And those aspects could be, gosh, a few examples. Essentially, we're looking at leading the school operations and program operations. So we're looking at leading all of those bits and pieces that keep schools running educationally. We could be looking at, another example might be principal and vice principal leadership endeavors. Organizational leadership might also include parent and family supports. An example of that being our complaints and appeals process for parents. We have human resources as part of these aspects, and the areas of recruitment and labor relations or performance management, staffing. This includes also budget management and oversight. It includes all manner of reporting, whether it's reporting to the board or within our system here, or reporting to the Ministry of Education and Childcare, or multitude of ministries that we might require that are required to reporting. So these are just a few aspects of organizational leadership that I think it's really important that I highlight for you when we think about then pursuing the goals of the strategic plan. So no need to read this on the screen. You've all received a copy, but essentially what you're seeing here is a one-page snapshot of where the Department of Learning Services considers sort of the overall intent of all four of the goals. So we take that into consideration. And then we look at all the individual objectives and consider each objective as it pertains to learning services. As there are a few objectives that learning services will not take direct leadership over. For example, an objective such as accelerating seismic upgrades and upgrading aging facilities, that's not something necessarily that learning services would take on a leadership role there. Or we could have some co-leadership activities around employee engagement or something, for example. But my point here is that in learning services, we become very familiar with the board strategic plan. So, in addition to the NLPS board strategic plan, there are a number of other requirements that the district must meet, and they are and could be system impacts. So we think about what's happening in the world or societally speaking, and those impacts will come in a variety of forms. We could be looking at operational needs, and I've outlined a few of those for you. So those also require consideration when building our plan, as well as the Ministry of Education and Childcare requirements. So when we think about the systems impacts or the operational needs, what we see in our schools and our communities could span from current societal pressures to collective agreements to educational research trends. Like there's a lot of occurrences both inside and outside the district that we'll need to take into consideration when we think about meeting the needs of every child in the district. So the ministry requirements come in many forms, and those can be requirements or sources of influence that could be more general in nature or more specific in nature. So for example, a ministry requirement that might be more general in nature would be, an example might be the curriculum. So the ministry mandates the curriculum for this province, and each district needs to adhere to that. And we have to take all that into consideration when we are looking at the needs of the learning needs in particular of our system here, of our district here. Another example might be mental health in schools planning. So the ministry requires that every district in the province plans and provides actions and a focus area around mental health in schools. So those are sort of more general. We have a little bit more freedom as to how we do that, but the ministry has certainly given the mandate to districts. An example that might be more specific in nature from the ministry would be we have a new project or initiative, if you will, around integrated child and youth teams, shortened version ICY. So this is a very specific initiative that our district is involved in, and it's a multi-ministerial initiative, and it is very specific in nature, and it dictates number of staff, what kinds of staff, etc. So that's an example of another piece of information or another source that will influence the DLS operational plan. So there are a lot of moving pieces. I know those circles on the screen aren't moving, but there are a lot of moving pieces in all of this. And so to help learning services as we sit down annually to plan with accompanying budgets, etc., is we create a vision to unite all of the work that we're doing, because there are so many moving pieces. And as you know, and you should be familiar with this by now, I'm sure, is our uniting vision to guide our approach to all of this planning is JEDI, Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. And so DLS will work both holistically and specifically to build strategies to meet the requirements of all three sources of influence. And that's the little centerpiece there in the middle. We need to take all of these pieces into consideration when building our operational plan. And then, of course, this will be familiar to you as well, that the sources and the source of data that learning services will use to report against the goals and objectives of the strategic plan are more satellite data, so they're higher level data. And it's essentially the list that you see here that I'm sure you're quite familiar with. So, I don't know how high satellites are in the sky, but it's, 60,000 feet, or we're looking from way on high, down, versus map level data, which would be more district or even school-based data. And then, of course, street level data will be classroom or individual student data. And so you can expect to see more around these sources of data as the year goes on. And then lastly, very similar to last year, the learning services, we will report against the board strategic plan and report out and share against our operational plan at the education committee meetings. And so we, in an attempt to be more timely, we will be attempting to share around one goal per meeting and have one school sharing or presenting. And in addition, there may be other topics that are created during agenda setting with trustees, of course. And you can expect to see highlights of the satellite data that I mentioned, and you can expect to get more robust information sheets in an effort to keep things timely. So you still get the same amount or robust information about the topic, whilst we're trying to keep timely in the meetings to give you a little more time to ask questions or to end the meeting and have all of us, you know, head home. So we'll do our very best to be very conscious of that and keeping things very timely. So that's a lot of information. And so I will pause there in case there are any questions or comments.
Do we have any questions? Please type it in the chat if you have a question. Oh, Trustee Morvay has a question.
Hi, Laura. Thank you for that. Really great operational plan for 2023-2024. Nicely laid out and clear. I do have to say the last two slides, though, didn't really seem to come in our package. So will we be receiving those at a later date? That would be really
Sure,
awesome.
I can. Yep, I can absolutely say I could send you the whole PowerPoint. There are more for my speaking points and to give you a bit of a graphic, and they're not
like
actually in our operational plan.
Yeah, they're great because the graphics really sort of like encapsulate sort of what, you know, you're saying, and it's a really great graphic to see that visually. So this, if I'm to understand correctly, and this is for everybody else listening as well, the operational plan that you have here, we've got the strategies set out and stuff. And so for the next year, at least until we come up with a new strategic plan, each one is going to hit some of these strategies, and you're going to like flesh them out a little bit more, or sorry, explain them a little bit more, in how you're doing that within the district.
Exactly. So our operational plan is probably like 30 pages long or more. And what I've given you in your package is just the first 4 pages with that one page that I had on screen, just to outline the strategies so that you can see what the strategies are. And, you know, I'm hoping for an iterative process here. And if we kind of set this pattern for years to come, we can get this plan to the board as early as possible. You can let us know your thoughts, and we can make that process a little bit more iterative. Sorry, could you ask me that question again? I got rolling onto a certain pathway.
I think you sort of answered it. That like the strategies that you have in your operational plan.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, so we'll be able to like that will be more further explained in subsequent meetings, sort of thing, right? So I don't need
exactly
questions now.
Sorry, the 30-page thing, right? So every one of those strategies that you see in the document could have one or several actions that go along with them to achieve that strategy, which is connected to your objective. And so the plan lays out. And so what happens is every 2 weeks, I meet with everyone in Learning Services individually. And we do it either holistically as a group, but also individually. And that's what we check against. How is that going? What's working? What's not? What's next? And they've got very specific action plans with metrics, etc. And those are more of our working plan, that those plans could be changed all the time or tweaked or augmented in some way.
Right. Okay, awesome. So the strategies themselves, is it okay to ask now then? So that's kind of 2 questions. So my follow-up question is, can I ask a question about one of the strategies? Sorry, I'm being cheeky.
Yeah, how about we'll go back. We can go back to you, Chantel, because it looks like awesome. Okay, thank you. Next up, we have Trustee Brosvik.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the Deputy Superintendent. One of the things that I want to get better at understanding for myself, so that when we're making requests of you, we understand how things work for you in terms of the ministry and new research and things that change. How often do you, like, does that happen to you guys a lot? Is it okay? And just give me some input on that process and how we can do better in that piece.
Well, I think this is a really good kind of, I don't know if it's first step, but it's certainly a really great step, that just sharing all of that with you. I've not, you know, I've not had the opportunity to have this conversation with the board, and for you to understand all of the influences and all the requirements that actually come into a school, like any school district, from the different sources. And so, you know, from the ministry in particular, it could be 1 or 2 items a year, or it could be several, depending on whether we're being audited that year. And that will be something that could take, 4 to 6 to 8 weeks of time, with everyone kind of putting everything else on hold. Reporting measures. So lots of these things are annual requirements, and some of them might be notification from the ministry to the superintendent to say, hey, we need every district to have a mental health in schools plan.
Okay.
Here's some guidelines, go, right?
Okay.
And that could be something that's new that we have to kind of figure out in the moment that we couldn't have planned for. So we got to go back to the plan. What can we take off, or what can we squeeze in? So it really varies. But then of course there are some that are regular and annual every year.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
No follow-up. Thanks, Naomi.
All right, thank you. Trustee Morvay, it doesn't look like anyone else has got a question. You want to follow up now with a follow-up?
Follow up with a follow-up. So I'm not sure how far deep into the operational plan it's all kind of done. So I'm not sure how if I should be even asking this question yet, because I'm not sure that it's fully fleshed out. But if you could, that would be really great. I'd like to understand a little bit further, and under goal 2, under the strategies, it talks about enhance and refine tier 3 referral pathways for specialized services and supports. Would you be able to kind of like expand on that a little bit?
Sure. So what this refers to is when we think about tier 3 programming in the district. So that could be anything from our elementary inclusion classroom to inclusion outreach K-12 to learning alternatives, to any of those sort of what we sort of view as alternative type programs. They're very, very specialized. So we refer to those as tier 3 programming, but you can sort of think of it as alternate ed or, very specialized kind of programming. So what we are attempting to do here is kind of get a handle on referral processes, try to get a handle on making sure that all of the folks that need to know in the system, that they're aware of what these programs are, they're aware of how to access them. What is that interface between a parent request, working with the school, all of those bits and pieces. We're looking to bring some cohesion and some clarity and almost more systematizing, I suppose, to those processes of communication and awareness and referral and the like.
Fantastic. Great. So it's basically pathways to different different end results, or not end results. So a little bit more about the outreach or the inclusion classrooms. So are those intended to like work back to the school so that actually, sorry, back it up. Sorry, my words are getting ahead of me here. So we talk about inclusive of diversity of our entire, so it's creating a safe, caring, and healthy learning and working environment that is inclusive of diversity of our entire learning community. We're switching out, okay, so we're helping the student, we're helping the family. How does that go back to the environmental part? Is there a piece in there as well that kind of connects in with the processes that are going to be happening? Like, is there?
I'm not sure if I understand. Can I take just a quick stab at this? And I'm not even sure if it's connecting to
I'm
what
not
you're
sure
asking.
So how to
That's okay.
explain that correctly. I'm so sorry. It's
No.
it's a
It's all
complex
good.
issue, and so
Yeah.
there's a lot of moving parts in this. And so I mean, we could talk for hours basically on just one issue. So I guess I'm wondering, like, how does the environment get impacted by these tier 3 supports and stuff?
And so by environment, I'm going to assume you mean sort of the homeschool context a little bit?
Or no, more like the classroom context, the school context, like how How do we
Okay.
create that environment?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what I thought maybe you were getting at. So I would like to say overarchingly, we endeavor within the school district to make our neighborhood schools as, you know, welcoming and warm and loving and caring for, well, for everyone, but, you know, so that families can feel welcome and okay to go to their neighborhood school. I mean, overarchingly, that's the end goal. Now, with that, as you mentioned, it is a complex issue. So there's many factors that may contribute to that homeschool, that neighborhood school not being the best environment for that child. There's a whole variety of factors that come into play there. Now, keeping in mind that that is the goal for us, is to work toward having every individual school, as much as possible and that is reasonable, provide those welcoming, inclusive environments. For some reasons, those homeschool classrooms and spaces are not the best place for that child at that time. And so we offer alternate environments for that child to learn in. And the end goal is going to really depend on a number of factors, but primarily what the child and their family want for themselves. Like, is this where I would like to stay? Am I working my way back to the school? That is the end goal. That's going to depend on a lot of factors, but primarily what the students' goals are. And so in the perfect world, all of the tier 3 environments would exist in every single school, or that every single school would be this place where we could have these sort of tier 3 type environments. We're not quite there yet. And as you know, there's a lot of specialized, individualized support that can happen in a tier 3 programming, which often requires, you know, more adults, and the adult to student ratio might be different than it might be in our, you know, one of our neighborhood schools. But certainly the goal is to have all of our environments, tier 1 to tier 3, be those welcoming places for as many kids and families as possible.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that a lot.
Thanks, Shanta.
All right, it looks like Trustee Robinson has a question.
Thank you. Hi, Laura. Thank you for your presentation. It was wonderful. I have a question also on the tier 3. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's when is that when outside support starts to come in from outside the district, and we're looking at am I right on that?
No, it could, but sort of tier 3 is like tier 1. When you look at, it's easier to explain and define tier 3 in the context of tier 1 and tier 2. So tier 1 is the kind of support that we hope every kid can receive in that classroom. So that's your typical classroom where you've got the teacher and maybe some support staff. You've got 25 kids in the class, and we are trying to meet everybody's needs, all 25 kids' needs, in the best way that we can creatively. Tier 2 might mean that we are honing in and tweaking with some particular needs of, say, a handful of students, and we are doing some things like we're pre-teaching, we're really pushing the universal design, we're connecting with parents on if you could get this, you know, when we're kind of specializing some of the support for an individual student or for a small group of students. It could mean that there's some group work done. It could mean that that group is outside the classroom sometimes and inside the classroom sometimes. And tier 3 will mean more significant support, and it's very individualized to that student. And it's not something that is generally shared or grouped together. The supports, it's often very, very specialized to that one student. It doesn't mean that student can't be in groups at times and things like that, but the support is very, very specialized and individualized. And sometimes in our current context, it's difficult to support those or provide those kinds of individual needs in your garden variety classroom.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. Thanks, Laura. Just a quick follow-up, Naomi, if I may. When we're looking at the tier a student in the tier 3 situation, and they might feel a little more isolated or I hate to use the word excluded, but they might have that feeling of exclusion. How robust do we work to sort of get them back to being included, you know, with consultation from their EA, or, you know, because I'm just wondering how robust that is.
Very similar to my sort of response to Trustee Morvay around our end goal is to provide the child with as much of that classroom or school community experience as possible. If a student is feeling isolated and isn't feeling included, then that's an alarm bell for us immediately, and we'll do our best to make sure that that child has those experiences as often as they could be successful, and work towards building that up if that's part of the child's plan. For some students, their preference, their capacities and abilities work really well when they are in small groups or individually, and for some that's actually a preference, and we're okay with that. Inclusion doesn't necessarily need to mean that all kids are in the classroom all the time. It's about having your needs met, and if your needs can be met at tier 1, that's ideal. And if you have needs that are going to be supported through tier 2 and tier 3 supports, that's good too.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you so much. Thank you, Naomi.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks. And it looks like Leanne Lee, Trustee Lee, has a comment.
Hi, thanks, Naomi. Through you to Chair to Laura. I just wanted to say thanks for the presentation and the graphic, because I think it's going to really help us as we're setting our new strategic plan to have that visual of what our goals are, what the objectives are, and then leaving the rest to learning services to hash out on how they're going to get there. Because I think that it's clear that this is a significant amount of work to do, but also to actually execute within our system with all the moving parts. So I just appreciate the graphic so that we can use it as we move forward. Thanks.
Okay, I just, I want to comment. I'm going to start saying our first name. Apparently, I'm not decolonizing like I should be. So I was trying to be formal after my kind of messy beginning. So anyways, I have a couple of questions. I guess maybe more clarification than anything. Laura, I was wondering in the strategy section, I highlighted a few areas, but if you don't mind, you could maybe answer a couple of them. I'll pick a couple. In the strategies under goal 2, you have continued to build capacity regarding mental health and wellness. What does that exactly mean, or do you have an idea of that yet?
I don't have a robust or detailed actually idea of that yet, but we do have a mandate from the ministry around supporting mental health in schools, and there's criteria and there's supportive materials. We've had different sorts of priority training for members of our staff, like ease training, and we're on the precipice of working with an university actually to pilot a program, a mental health program. So when we have that, again, we're just in the sort of these stages of getting this plan together. It will be one of those strategies that will be reported against in the education committee meetings, and we can run through, and I'll probably have some of the directors with us at that time to speak more specifically to some of those pieces.
Thank you. And so the other one I wanted to ask about was what this exactly means, or just a generalization, was under goal 4 in the strategy. The top one, create a district structure to support transformative reconciliation at the secondary level.
Yeah, thank you for asking. So again, this will be something that you'll get in more detail. So I'm trying to keep a little bit more high level, I can only be kind of more higher level because I'm not directly involved at all the time. So the district structure to support transformative reconciliation. That started last year with learning district staff and principals and vice principals really getting a sense and doing a bit of a scan around Jedi practices as they relate to transformative reconciliation. Whereas in learning services, we see those two things closely linked and almost at times define them as the same thing. When we look at Jedi, we are looking at practices where we often can bump up against colonial structures in these systems that whether it's our K-12 system or post-secondary system, we're bumping up against some of these structures, and we're looking at, from a leadership perspective, being aware of what those are and looking at how can we decolonize the systems, the structures, our leadership practices. And so what we're doing as a second step after that scan, this year is working more closely with principals, vice principals, and we have a fellow called Dustin Louis who's working very closely with that team to unpack all of those pieces, having PVPs look inward and consider their beliefs and values, their stereotypes that they may hold, their biases, and how does that play out in some of the systems and structures that they are perpetuating or creating, and supporting them to look at how they can perhaps do things in a bit more of a decolonizing fashion. Is that Dawn's on with us, so Dawn can jump on into more details, but essentially we're working through that actually at both elementary and secondary in very similar fashion.
Thank you. And so the last one I wanted to ask is because it jumped out at me because it's kind of one of my passions is
Nice.
the land-based learning course at Ladysmith Secondary.
Yeah.
Talked about, mirroring that course in other high schools in the district as an elective for all students. So you had develop more opportunities for land and language-based programming at schools with on-reserve student population. So could you explain that one in a little more detail?
So the first part is exactly what you just said. So we're looking at, we've seen a model of, wise practice, and we're looking at growing that in other locations. So that's essentially that piece. Now, what we have often done over the last, decade or so is when we look at growing, particularly in the area of Indigenous education strategies, we'll often tap into or take a look at those schools that receive a higher number of students from on reserve, because as we know, and as we look at the data, the satellite data, map and street data, we know that members of some of our most vulnerable groups are those those students that are living on reserve. And so they have, as the superintendent has made very clear to us, those students have then therefore become priority students, to use his words, priority students for us. And so this will mean that the beginning, as we start, we can't do all schools and go everywhere and grow the land-based, course and all of that entails everywhere at the same time. So we'll start with those schools that receive and have a higher number of our priority students.
Yeah, thank you very much. That makes sense. And one of the biggest obstacles is going to be the staffing piece, right? But I think lots of places are working on that, to be able to get more Indigenous Halkomelem speakers,
Exactly.
in the school system, right? Thank you very much. Yeah, I just, to me, I know one of the strategies you mentioned in here was the Indigenous focused grad requirements.
Yes.
And I would like to see all students have an opportunity to learn about the culture, about what it means when you say Indigenous way of knowing, being, and learning. And right now, I know we're having the requirement of, I think, is it English 10?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so I would like to see students have a choice rather than have to take one course. To be able to, and of course, we've talked about this before, but
yeah,
this segues into our environmental objectives and stuff like that. So anyways, thank you. You had quite a few questions and you answered everything in great detail, and I really appreciate it. And like everyone said, the layout is really great. It was really easy to follow, and thank you very
Perfect.
much, Laura.
Okay, thank you so
Okay.
much. Thanks for the time.
No problem. Okay. All right, so now I think it's 8.2. Once again, we're Department of Learning Services. So Laura, you're back on to do introductions.
Thank you. I'm only on just to introduce and to welcome our assistant superintendents to the screen, where they will, and they're going to give us a bit of an overview, and it's this time of year, right? So we're doing our DLS ops plan, and we're starting off in a good way. And both Jackie and Don are going to outline a bit around what's happening K-12 with regards to school startup. So thank you, Jackie and Don.
Thank you. So thank you to the chair. I will get us started to just share that in the information sheet, we had some high level information around our enrollment and where we've added some classes, where there's been some changes, and just the generally welcoming back. It's been great to be able to welcome so many students back to schools, to see them coming back in with smiles on their faces and ready to get going, seeing our extracurricular, our open house events and Terry Fox events. And all sorts of September things happening. And here we are into October already. So the month of September flew by and we are settling in. So I'm not going to read through the information sheet. You have it there in front of you. And if you had any questions for that, we can address them after our school presentations. The one thing that I did want to speak to, and I'll start, and then I'll be handing it over to Don Belcombe. And that is just around, we know that our goal always is to welcome our students back and to have them feel safe and have a sense of belonging and having, 2 or more adults in their building that they can trust and they go to. But we also know that sometimes we have peer conflict, sometimes we have some challenges with our students, and we had some questions coming around what do our schools do to build safe, caring, and supportive community? And then what do our schools do when there is that peer conflict or bullying? So I'm going to start off and just give a little bit of an example from an elementary perspective, and then I'll turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Don Belcombe. So I'm going to give an actual example and just walk through an example, because sometimes that's a little bit easier than to go and give it just always high level. As we noticed in the info sheet, we do have our principals and vice principals use AP 312 to guide them through the process. But if we had an example for I'm going to use elementary, of course. I'm thinking of grade 5. So think about some grade 5 girls, and there's been some challenges between a grade 5 girl group. There's some name calling. There's maybe been somebody not included on things on the playground. And there's a student who's not feeling great about coming to school. They're feeling uncomfortable. So what would we do? What's the process that I would do as a principal in that school? I would start off by speaking with the girl directly, finding out what's happening. How is she feeling? What's been going on? How long has this been happening? What's involved? Who's involved? I would also talk to the other girls in the group, usually individually, so that they can each have their own perspectives and not feel pressured from the group around them, and have a chance to get a sense of what's happening with them as well, and see what kinds of interactions have happened. It's not uncommon in something like this to find out that there's been other girls who have felt the same way. I'd also often connect with teachers and the EAs to see what's happening in the classroom and on the playground. So we spend lots of time talking to them. Often we'll find out that this is around more peer conflict versus bullying. There's not an imbalance of power. It's not really targeted at one person. It happened to be that there was a conflict in regards to this particular incident, but it may have been a different child at another time. Depending on what all comes out from the conversations, we may bring the girls together to problem solve and work through it and talk about, interactions and how we speak to each other. If it's appropriate, there'd be apologies. Where it's needed, sometimes the classroom will do some specific lessons on peer interactions and kindness and how we interact with each other. Or we'll have even peer interaction groups or social groups around with our child and family support workers or with our counselors. Depending on the severity of it, we'll often call parents and include them as well. If the parents have brought it to our attention, we always follow up with them. So again, if it's, if it's a peer conflict amongst them, we do work on that. I think back to when I was teaching grade 7, it wouldn't be uncommon for us to actually see that conflict change from recess to lunch to the end of the day. And they'd be getting along or not getting along, and you'd always greet them at the door to find out how those interactions were going. We always make sure that we, talk to the kids, find out what's going on, and then figure out ways to support them with a variety of people. Don, welcome. I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Assistant Superintendent Poulin. Secondary situations are often very similar to elementary. There's peer conflict at secondary. One of the beautiful things about coming to secondary, hitting that developmental age, is peer groups form, peer groups dissolve, peer groups reform, and with that comes some natural conflict. So it's not uncommon for school staff to support students to say, what do you do when some of your peers no longer are your friends? You might think that you're enemies when really they're just moving on. So there's general conflict there, and how to move on in a healthy way. So that's all part of learning and growing up. But there's also lots of incidents that our schools deal with that are very, very complex, and some of the most challenging things that our school leaders have to deal with are around issues of bullying and harassment. Social media creates a 24/7 presence for our students and our families that is a challenge for staff to deal with. So an example of an incident that might happen at a secondary school could be over the summer or an evening or a weekend where there's been a criminal code infraction and a student has not only bullied, harassed, or intimidated, or otherwise harmed another student, but they may have broken a criminal code. And so the RCMP are often involved. There could be court restrictions for students. So sometimes what we think of as an issue that the school could resolve end up going through the criminal justice system, and we end up working alongside the RCMP to implement some of their requirements. Often in our educative, preventative, and restorative model, we have students who harm others who are willing to engage in a restorative practice. So we've used the John Howard Society and other formalized restorative practice models to try to make whole situations where there's been harm for students. Other times, it gets super complicated and remains an issue for significant portion of time. So I'll give you an example where a student may say, I had a conflict with a peer over the summer, and there's some video that's very embarrassing and humiliating, and I want to switch schools because even though it's the student has removed the videos, they've apologized, I don't feel like I can remain in this peer group. And schools struggle with, how do you support a student and the family who's recommending they get a fresh start at another school, when often that social media has legs and has traveled around the community and resurfaces months and months later. So it's a broad topic that both Jackie and I support our school leaders to work through on a regular basis. And there are issues that get tied up in a bow and people feel really good that it's been resolved, but there's other issues that are ongoing, and new challenges arrive as new social media in particular comes on board. So we'll probably stop there and just welcome trustees if you want to join the conversation, or you have questions that you'd like to ask for either Jackie or I. We're happy to answer those.
Yeah, is there anyone that has a question? If not, I have one. Oh, Trustee Morvay, Chantel Morvay has a question. Okay.
That's okay.
My question's around the educative, preventative, and restorative. I'm just wondering, do we have statistics on how many students leave a school because then the parents, remove their student from the school because they don't feel safe and they don't feel that the school has done enough to protect their child?
I wouldn't say we would have that specific data set, no.
Okay, so in terms of the restorative, because I heard you say, I'm just following up here, you mentioned that if the student agrees to do restorative, so if they don't agree to do restorative, if that's what you said, right?
Yep.
If they don't agree to it, then what kind of consequence does a student have that's been bullying another student?
Usually the formalized restorative justice approach is an alternative to the criminal justice system. So usually the RCMP will be talking with, in this case, a victim and their family saying, would you be interested in a restorative practice? They always have the right to say no. If they are interested, then they go to the person who has potentially entering the criminal justice system and say, would you like to avoid the criminal justice process by engaging in a restorative justice process? And sometimes people say no because they're not interested in that restorative piece, and then they go through the criminal justice process.
I'm referring more to like bullying in the school between maybe two students, and the bully or bullies have decided to pick on one student. What kind of we do the educative, because we always teach kids about bullying and about respectful behavior, right? What do we do to prevent this from stopping again? Like, what do we do to ensure the student that's been bullied is felt safe, not in a criminal sense, but just in a school sense? What kind of consequence is there, or is there a consequence?
I'll jump in and I'll say that it really is dependent from student to student, and each incident there could be consequences. Sometimes students at the elementary level, it might be a case of you know, not having been at school for a couple of days. Sometimes there is a suspension depending on the severity of something. Sometimes it's a case of just making sure that they're not interacting with those students and putting systems in place to make sure that there's not an opportunity for those interactions to happen. Well, you continue to work on the educational part so that students learn the positive ways to interact. So we always come back to, even though there might be consequences, or, you know, as you're commenting on, we're always working towards restorative, whether it be, again, possibly apologies. Sometimes it's just, but that might not be in the moment. Sometimes it needs to be further down the path when they've had a chance to work through some of their own challenges.
Okay, yeah, and you know, Jackie, I'd appreciate that answer. I've had the luxury of working in both elementary and secondary, and I know, Dawn, like secondary is a lot more complex. Not only that, when you're dealing with a school, like when we were at Dover, there's 1,400 students. It's not as easy to keep students separated. So I do, I understand that. Thank you very much for sharing with us. Really appreciate this information, and I'm glad that things were, I know it's always a bit iffy that first week or whatever, but it sounds like things got rolling, and good work. Thank you. Doesn't look like there's any other questions, so I guess we can move on.
Wait.
Oh, she just popped in there just now.
Yes,
Okay.
I did. Yes. Thank you, to you, Naomi. To either one of you, and it really kind of, it is broken out, right? So there's the secondary and the elementary portion of this, but I think about newer educators, you know, educators who might not have or feel they have the skills to do some of this work, or maybe have not heard of restorative justice as much, right? They're not as embedded into it, right? Do you have plans in the future this year to have these learning opportunities to build that capacity in our staff? Is there anything yet planned, in other words? Because we're still early on the year, but yeah, is it on the radar?
I'll just start off and say I don't believe we have any learning plan or learning sessions specifically planned around this topic for educators. When you're talking about some of our new educators, my first thought was some of our younger educators or people newer to the system are very savvy with social media and are some of the best folks to educate students on how to be safe online and how to be respectful in their interactions with people, because they've grown up in that ecosystem of being online, whereas some of us more experienced educators, as Jackie and I refer to ourselves, are going back to learn some of these pieces. But I do like the idea of some dedicated intentional learning opportunities, whether it's just in resources or giving people an opportunity at one of our learning sessions to delve into this and build their toolkit on how to resolve those issues in the classrooms.
And just as a follow-up to that, Chantel, I think also a lot of that learning in regards to how we interact with students and how we help guide through that restorative is through modeling. So it's our principals and vice principals bringing the teacher in and modeling how we would have those conversations with our newer, younger teachers or an experienced teacher, just doing that modeling. So a lot of that, you know, we don't have any formal plans around that currently, but we do a lot of it just within the schools for sure.
Okay, great. Yeah, sorry, I have one more question if you don't mind. If I could do a follow-up, Naomi, because it kind of goes off of the idea of the bullying, but it goes a little bit deeper, and that's the discrimination part, right? When people are targeted because of their identity on the school system or on the schoolyard, in the classroom and stuff like that. Is there anything in particular that we're doing? And I know there is. I just want to highlight it here for folks too. Is the types of things that we're doing to create a more inclusive environment for folks, so that discrimination is not used as a bullying tool.
It's all around that ongoing education, and I think this will lead beautifully into some of the work. We'll have a couple of school presentations coming up that will talk about some of the work that they do to make sure that students know that the school that they attend is a place that's a welcome and safe place for all individuals, and that we you know, accept and welcome and embrace diversity.
I didn't intend it that way, but I guess I read your
Hey,
mind,
you
so
led it perfectly.
fantastic. Thank you so much.
So if it works, then what I would like to do is I'd like to actually introduce our first school, which is McGirr Elementary, so Robbie Dillon will be joining us and introducing his team as they speak to their welcoming families in and their startup. There we go. Thank you, Robbie.
Big game day tonight, folks, for myself and my hockey team here. So this is getting my hockey helmet on, making sure it fits right. All right.
We've lost your sound, I think, Robbie.
That's weird. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take this off. Okay, so we've got EJ Boyd, who's my inclusion support teacher at McGirr Elementary. There's EJ on, well, probably different parts on everyone's screen. There she is. We have Kim Dawson, our Learning Lab teacher librarian. And we've got Bob Brooks, our vice principal at McGirr. And we're fortunate here to be presenting to you on a board goal about safe, caring, and healthy learning communities, healthy environment. I have a PowerPoint. We're going to see if it works. If not, I know Jackie has it as well. So let's see if this pops up. And can you see that on your end?
Yes, it's very good.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so we'll just go through our slides here. So our board goal focus that we're speaking to tonight is a safe, caring, and healthy learning environment. We have an objective around increasing the number of students who feel welcome, safe, connected, and have a sense of belonging in their schools. I think it was a nice segue from the previous presenters. The focus will be what McGirr does to welcome new and returning families to McGirr to get the year off on a positive start. To begin with, the work actually starts early. It starts in the previous school year. We have something called Welcome to Kindergarten that welcomes all our new kindergarten families to the school. This actually includes members of our entire school-based team, and that team can be up to 10 or 12 members large. As a principal, I have the opportunity to meet with the parents separately while the students are with the staff in the gym. We then transition to our holidays. We come back kind of in mid-August. All families get added to a program called MyEd, which allows us to have the ability to email all our families, new and old. So at that point, I will send out an email to families welcoming them to McGirr and introducing them to our school. We return back to the school about a week before school opens up. This year was August 28th. And we send out another welcome email, including the date of an open house type event that we'll have for all new grade 1 to 7 families, plus any new kindergarten families who have missed Welcome to Kindergarten. This year at McGirr, we had roughly 50 out of 67 new families attend the event. This is a full-on assembly. You multiply each student by 1 or 2 adults and sometimes little siblings that are preschool age. And we probably had in our gym well over 130 people. We had a complete assembly, complete with a traditional welcome and the singing of O Canada. We give families and the kids a good tour of our school. The families then have an opportunity to meet staff members who specifically have come in on that day. And I might add, that's a day that they are not expected to be at work. They're in there setting up their classrooms, and they deliberately come that day around that time so they can welcome many members of our new community, many new members to our McGirr family. I'll turn it now over to EJ, who's going to talk to us a little bit about her role as an inclusion support teacher with respect to welcoming new and returning families. EJ?
Hi, everyone. So the work that we do with our new and vulnerable students, anybody that has unique needs, new kindergarten students, incoming students from other schools, does start in about May or June. And that's when I try and connect, go through the list of incoming students, see who might need some extra supports. And then I organize some intake meetings, and I usually have a whole team. Any of their support people from outside the school are welcome to join us, families join us, the kiddos join us, and then I usually try and have a representative from their incoming grade level there as well. So we have big intake meetings, take lots of notes, make lots of contacts. And I also try at that point in time, if they're coming from another school, to find out some things that might help their students settle in and make the first weeks of school successful. Then we look at the first week of school. When we get back, we talk about that first week. And we try and get kiddos with exceptionalities and unique needs settled into their rooms as quickly as possible. And so sometimes that means that they don't rotate through the school doing different activities. And I try and figure out who their teachers are going to be really quickly so that we can have EAs in place. They get to know their teacher a little bit faster. And I do leave it up to families if they feel that the confusion of the first week of school might be too much for their kiddos. They're welcome to stay home, but we always have a safe and caring spot for them at school, and we will make it work no matter what. And we try and make sure that I have tubs of containers for any of our returning kiddos, and they have all their supports in place, all their visual schedules in place, anything that they might need, so that I can take the tote, hand it off to the new teacher, and hand it off to the EAs. And I also make sure that everybody has a copy of any important documents like an IEP. I make sure that teachers have those. And then Robbie and I talked a little bit before school about who we thought the EAs would work well with for that first week until we get settled. And so we try and connect the kids with as many familiar adults as we can. And we take into account personalities and who we think would be a really good fit for the kids, both the teacher and for the EA. And then we just try and make sure that we're out and visible and making sure families feel welcome and greeting them. I also have an open door policy in my room. And then my room gets used a lot for what we call soft starts. So if any of the kids are having trouble settling into their room, my room first thing in the morning is pretty busy. Kids can come in, play Lego, draw, color, read a book, and that gives them just a soft place to land for the morning. So because the first weeks of school can be a little bit crazy for kids. And so that's kind of my role in the first weeks of school.
Thanks, EJ. And now our Vice Principal, Bob Brooks, is going to talk to us a little bit about how the first couple of days look.
Good evening, everyone. I know that Robbie's gonna, there we go. I just want to first of all say how grateful I am to be here. It's a lovely time of year, and this first month has been amazing. Our first day, though, is really an amazing thing because in that first hour, we get to reconnect with our kids. And for those of us that are in the classroom, it's a wonderful opportunity to be able to see the kids that we taught last year. They come in and they meet with their previous year's teacher, and lots of conversation. And it's very relaxing, and it's also a wonderful opportunity for our new families to kind of try to fit right into that. And they do really nicely because they come and join us, and we have our grade 7 students, which is really great to see. They tour our kids around the school, and they take our kids into the classrooms, and they bring them right back to the gym as well for their waiting parents. And sometimes those kids are a little bit nervous. Hey, we just say to the parents, "That's okay, come right along," you know, and they do. But we have a lot of new students at our school, and the biggest thing that I think that provides for us is a sense of calm. You know, a chance for us to be able to just kind of show ourselves and lead with our hearts, and that's the way that our first week looks like. I know that first day is just an hour long, but after that, that first week really is just about reconnecting a little bit and having a chance to be able to see a few different options with our different classes in our school. On that first day, we also hold a bit of a teams assembly, which is kind of nice because people right away, especially we have brand new kids, kindergarten kids, quite a few of them, 37 of them actually. And they're seeing for the first time what it looks like to be in a school, and they're getting a chance to be able to see an assembly, get to see Mr. Dillon on the screen, and get a chance to be able to see all of us. And that first impression is always a really positive one. The thing that I'd say that I'm very excited about in the fact that our school really does a really good job of making sure that those kids really, really feel comfortable. And those new families also see us as individuals that are really going to care for their kids.
Thanks, Bob. And now over to Kim Dawson, who is our Learning Lab teacher, and she's actually new to the role this year. We're grateful to have her at our school. Kim?
Thank you. Good evening. I am new to the position. I've been a teacher for many years in the district, and am so happy to be launched into this. So I'm in the library, which I've changed to Learning Lab because I feel like it encompasses so much more than just books. So I feel like the Learning Lab is a place where the welcoming gets to happen throughout the year. Great start with like what has just been mentioned, but a place where I've offered Monday mornings to our new families and those with little toddlers outside dropping off on Monday mornings to come into the Learning Lab, and from 8:30 till 9 Monday mornings to just connect and maybe sit down and grab a little book, or, you know, if it works, that I can sit and read a little story to a small group. That would just happen organically. So hopefully that offering will start to generate some interest. The other thing that we're setting up is student volunteers and parent volunteers. We have a great start. We have three great parents that are committed to coming in and helping with just that clerical checkout things, which they have also expressed great gratitude to being welcomed in through the door. Students come in each recess, and they are happy to be there. And those sometimes are students who maybe just you know, don't want to be out on the playground, gives them a safe place to be, and with a purpose. So the other thing we have done is opened up the Learning Lab Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at lunch. And this is a place where, you know, kids can just land. Today, for instance, we had a student crocheting. We had another playing a spot-it game, a small group. Others were working on a collaborative doodle project that I have in there. Some just reading, and it's just a really lovely space for them to feel safe and a sense of belonging. Monday through Thursday, offering a homework club, and that too has been received well. We have students popping in to just finish off something before heading home, or some just come to have a little into their day, a little chat with friends, but it's always a nice, calm, and inviting environment. Fridays, and this is my little, I guess I get a little plug here. I'm going to have special guests, readers come in, and so if you would like to be a special guest reader on Friday at McGirr, please send me an email. And I'll slot you into a spot. Hoping to have alumni staff and community members come in and expand our community. The other thing we do is once a week we have Strong Start come. They make their way from their room up into the Learning Lab, come for story time, have a little book time, and that has started already, and it's lovely. It's really great to see the littles come in and be supported with their caregivers and engaged in that next step of learning at school. And our final thing that we have launched into is we are busy putting together applications for NOI grants and for our professional learning groups that are offered from the NDTA to, in collaboration with our youth and child family support worker, to keep building and exploring opportunities to create a welcoming environment and ensuring that our literacy needs are met.
Thank you, Kim. And then just to conclude, just some artifacts or pictures from around the school. The long picture there with all the little faces, that's a kindergarten classroom, so that's kind of the inside of a door. Picture taken on opening day with child and caregiver. Kid feels sad or something like that. They can easily go see a picture of their caregiver on the wall, and as they wait for the day to end. The rainbow, that's in front of EJ's room. View the world through rainbow colored glasses. Inclusion matters. Appreciate diversity and differences. And then at the bottom, you've got a picture in the Learning Lab. You've got Kim Dawson there, along with a parent volunteer. That's Melissa Hofert, and she's one of the 3 parent volunteers that are helping in the library on a regular basis. And you can see the learning space there. It looks a little different than a traditional library. You can see there with the setup there for, if a child needs to read in a different type of an environment there with a little tent. So that's the conclusion of our elementary presentation. Jackie, do I turn it back over to you?
Thank you, for sure.
Thanks.
Thank you so much to your team. Just wondering if we could see if there's any comments or questions that we would like to have first, if that's okay with you, Trustee Bailey, so that before we go on to the next school.
Yeah.
I'm going to need you to stop sharing your screen, please, Robbie. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, try.
There you go, perfect.
There we go. Have you got it? Okay.
No, it's not. It sounds good. Do we have any questions? Mark has a question. And then Chantel.
Thanks, Naomi. I think Tom was before me. I think he had a question at the end.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark. Very, very kind of you. Thank you, Robbie. That was a fantastic presentation. And I'm kind of holding back a dog here. So if you think I look funny, that's why. I just remember going over to Park Avenue and bringing plays over to your school when I was a rookie teacher, Robbie, and it's just wonderful to see. I'm sure you've made many stops in the district in your leadership role since then, and yeah, thanks for continuing the journey of leadership in our district for us. Your wonderful outreach there that you do, I'm thinking at the beginning when we're first trying to make contact with parents and include them in the school community. It sounded like we've got a lot of technological ways of reaching out to people, but I started thinking, how are we doing at reaching the people that don't respond to the digital calls, that the people that may be on the wrong side of the digital divide? Do we have a plan B that we turn to if we're not hearing from families through newsletters? We can't get them into MyEdBC. What's the strategies there that we employ? Thank you.
just your traditional old school, pick up the phone and call.
And that seems to do the job?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. I just want to make sure that no one falls through the cracks. It sounds like you got it covered. Thank you, Robbie.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Tom. Next up, we have Mark.
Thanks, Naomi. I'm not holding back a dog, although I've met that dog and it'd be quite difficult to hold back as a guest. I don't know what to imagine as a master. So, thank you, Robbie, and your team, EJ, Bob, Kim. It's always a pleasure. I have a question about. It's a little sensitive, but I'm a sensitive fella, so I'll give it a whirl. It's regarding inclusion, and McGirr is quite a multicultural and inclusive school, I must say. I always love visiting McGirr. Not every school in the province of British Columbia has rainbow. Not every school, and we're seeing a lot of individuals, families moving to the island, say in the last 5-10 years especially. I'm wondering how staff, and I don't know if you could answer this, Robbie, or one of your team, has noticed a change. Is there any change of, say, families that are from, say, northern BC or Alberta or places where it's more of a homogenous demographic and students are having a more of a difficult time adjusting, or if it's new to them? How are we seeing anything like that at all, Robbie?
I mean, the most of our new growth, quite frankly, has been from overseas. We have, what is it, EJ, at last count, 115 students that are ELL out of 467?
Yeah, I think today we added about 3 new ones. So
yeah, so we're
pushing.
Yeah, and I think we're pushing 27 or 29 languages in the school.
Yeah.
As well. And so many of our challenges are students who are just trying to learn English.
Right. When I mentioned McGirr is multicultural,
yeah,
no kidding.
Yeah,
right? That's one of the reasons I love visiting McGirr, because I embrace multiculturalism. I have a follow-up, Naomi, and if I may, it's about homework club. I'm very curious what that looks like. Kim mentioned that, and I'm curious if that's a daily thing. I didn't quite catch if it's a daily thing, just on Fridays, and sign me up for Friday, by the way. Yeah, you bet. So what does homework club look like?
Dismissal is at 2:10, so from 2:10 to 2:45, Monday through Thursday. The Learning Lab is open, and students at this point, because quite often at the beginning of the year is a time when teachers are building community and making connections. So the actual homework is a little maybe lighter, little projects, on students sharing all about me and whatnot. I envision possibly it changing as the year unfolds, but certainly right now it's just been a place where students have come, different kids from different classes, and they bring their pencil box and they bring their project and they sit down and get to work. And it's kind of nice, because they can share ideas and build on each other's ideas around a table. So it's very informal, yet opportunity for them to drop in.
That's great.
And if I might add, sorry, Mark, to that, is many of the students taking place in the homework club after school are some of our more vulnerable students, and students that often struggle getting to school in the morning. Like today, for example, I noticed 3 or 4 in there after school just match that exact definition of what I just said. So it's just an interesting mix, and it's nice to see, actually, and we are grateful that Kim has taken over the role and we were able to make it a full-time position, and lots of great things happening there in the Learning Lab for sure.
Wonderful. We appreciate Kim, EJ, Bob, Robbie. Thank you so much for all the hard work. Thank you. We really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. And so next up is Chantel, and then Leanna will be after that.
Hi, thank you through you, Naomi. I don't really have any questions. But if you do want to like expand a little bit more after I speak, that'd be great. Your reputations precede you. I will admit, I've heard great things from about you folks over at McGirr. And EJ, thank you for your attention to detail, to making sure that our students and families who need it really have a good soft landing when they begin, because it's such an anxiety-ridden time for a lot of our students, especially those with disabilities and neurodivergent and stuff like that. So it's really awesome that you started so early on, and it shows. It's there. We can tell. And Kimberly, the Learning Lab is a great idea. We in our school, when we used to go to school in Mission, had something similar, and it was such a great way for families to feel more connected to their school community, especially the volunteer parents. And as you have a lot of families that are very new, not only to the area, but to the country itself, I think that's a really great way for them, an easy way to sort of like come in and be there, but it's not as much, doesn't take as much capacity kind of thing as being sometimes on a pack, which is more commitment sometimes, but it's that gateway drug, you know, to come in and get in there and help out. Books are a great equalizer. So also, yes, put me down for a Friday. I love reading and I love books, and I love the community that you're building there. Thank you for your presentation. It was fantastic. And thank you for all that you do for our students, our families, and our staff.
Thank you, Chantel.
Thank you.
Yeah. Leanna. There she is. Oh, you gotta unmute yourself. Oh, you're muted again.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry guys. I love this so much. EJ, the visual of like the tote and the Passover, like for some reason that just warms my heart so much, and I love the details with that and the kind of warm-hearted, like here's everything you need for this student. I like that a lot. And the Monday morning story hour is absolutely like fascinating and genius to include families in. Like that is amazing. I hope a whole bunch of people come to that. I've never heard anything like that, and it's just beautiful. Like what a community spirit. So was it 26 or 29 languages that you said, Robbie?
You know, I think we're up to 29 now.
Wow, that's wild. So does that, like, could you use apps like on phones? Are there multiple ways of navigating that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll often have like, I think it's called the Google Translate app that I have on my phone.
Yeah.
And just today I actually had 2 girls teaching me Russian.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, at recess time, they were hanging out near me. So, you know, I was asking them, how do I say my name? Like, je m'appelle, my name is. And I butchered it up. I'm not even going to try. They were laughing.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And this may be a silly question because I don't know much about libraries or learning labs and how they work because I'm pretty new to this. But is there an ability to get books in other languages? Or is that more just like having someone sit with an app to go through a story with another student or that doesn't speak English?
Oh, EJ got the answer. Here we go.
So there's a really great online resource that we have for our ELL students, or ESL students, whichever terminology you want to use. But it actually does provide books. They are online books, but we can choose any language. And
wow.
The story, yeah, it's a great app. Of course, it's flow in my head right now as to what it is, but I have it bookmarked on my computer. And it's a really great app that I can choose almost any language and we can find a story in the child's home language, which makes them a little bit more welcome as well.
That's amazing.
Also the audio portion of that as well. Yeah, I forget the name of the program, but I remember last year we bought some audiobooks in other languages as well.
Wow. Okay. Thank you very much. And please put me down for Friday as well, for a Friday. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was just thinking, I did a practicum at McGirr in 1991 or 92, I think, when it was it was only a year old, I think, the school at the time. My, has it ever changed? It didn't have that diversity. That's amazing. And EJ, I've always heard about you, and I don't think we ever got to teach together. I think you came to Princess Royal the year after I left, but I've always heard wonderful things about you, and the great work that you're doing here is just an example of that. And Kim, I think Kim and Jackie and I graduated as teachers together. So yeah, we go way back, and it's really great to see you guys doing such fantastic work, and great leadership, Robbie and Bob, and wish you the best of luck this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you very much to the team. So thank you so much for sticking around tonight and for the presentation from the McGirr team. Greatly appreciated. And I will turn it over to Dawn for introducing our secondary team.
Thank you, Jackie, and thank you to the entire McGirr team for sharing. That was fabulous. I'm going to turn it over real quickly here to Brett Hancock, Principal of Learning Alternatives. When we talked about having a principal come and talk about School Startup, my first thought was to Learning Alternatives, because we've consolidated all of their programs together at the Woodlands site. And so Brett's been very intentional with his staff on ensuring that all of their students and families feel welcome and supported in their new site. So I'm going to turn it over and invite Brett on to share his PowerPoint presentation, and I've got a backup here if technology is an issue. So over to you, Brett.
All right, is everyone able to see that first slide?
Yeah,
yes.
You bet. We're good to go.
Beautiful. Siemna, Tolquen, Siemna, Siatya, Siemna, Squaliqua, Anthapa, Brett Hancock, Tanitsanith, Salto, Cree, Métis, E. Romney, Ait, Quanaselam, Nala, Tanaquel, Eats and CIs, Ta Learning Alternative, School Eok, Ciatalatus, Nanemo, Malstimach, Ni Harquishis, Tantamach, E. Tanaquel, Hisap, Beowisium. Respected elders, friends, and family, my name is Brett Hancock, and my ancestors come from the Saulteaux, Cree, Métis, and Romney nations. It's great to see all of you here this evening. I have the great privilege to serve as the principal at Learning Alternatives. I give my highest gratitude and appreciation to the people of Snuneymuxw for allowing our school to lead learning on their traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories. This September startup had the Learning Alternatives family feeling blessed. For the first time in many years, our school-age programs hold space together, all under the same roof at Woodlands. At times, September startup can be like trying to take a sip of water from a fire hose that's on full blast. But I am honored to work alongside amazing staff who know when we must slow things down, when we must shut off the fire hose and make sure that everyone is safe, supported, and loved. It is during those times that we learn the stories of our students. Our journey to share in this rich learning space at Woodlands started in July and in August with our summer learning program. And this summer was the 3rd year we've been able to lead this program. And our numbers were the best they've ever been. Things in the summer, they move a little slower. And it's when our teaching staff start to learn the story of every learner that we serve. So our focus in September was to build a strong sense of belonging with all students, families, staff, and our community partners. We welcomed over 100 new students, and we helped them feel known, heard, and understood. As our school engaged in this practice of belonging, we wanted to make sure that we covered 3 important areas. Number 1, welcoming students and setting expectations. Number 2, inviting students to share about their personal story. And number 3, goal setting to help their healing, growth, and learning. We encouraged all students and families to give us feedback on this process and what they believe would improve our practice. September is when we start to improve the life chances of every learner we serve. And our work is based on a fundamental responsibility to encourage students to engage in their personal growth and to build a center of gravity that pulls them as they heal, grow, and learn. Every one of our students has a personalized student learning plan. And these plans are developed with the student, their family, school staff, and any community support that the youth is connected to. The plans have 3 goals that drive how we're going to improve the life chances of each learner. And together, we develop a healing goal, a growth goal, and a learning goal in that order. The process of developing these goals is done through specific and intentional activities that support the well-being of the student and the health of the school community. This process is referred to as the shared practice. With more than half of our school population proudly identifying as having Indigenous ancestry, we're passionate about making the First Peoples Principles of Learning and the 94 calls to action more than just a poster on a classroom wall. Our school has a strong emphasis on land-based learning. We make it a habit to regularly get outside of the school building. And this year, we've been blessed to have Snuneymuxw land and language teacher Adam Manson work with us every Monday and Tuesday. We also have Snuneymuxw elder Lolly Good bringing her medicine and Itsquail song to the students and staff every Wednesday. By having all our students and staff together under one roof, they can all have access to Adam, to Elder, and they also have access to our Indigenous support teacher, Troy Johnson, to our Indigenous cultural support worker, Val Masterman. The learning that these beautiful people provide, it supports the well-being of the self, the family, the community, the land, the spirits, and the ancestors. And I'm honored to learn from them. Each week, I send out a playful weekly challenge to all our staff. And last week, I asked our staff how they would describe our school to someone that asked them, what is learning alternatives? The responses that I received had my bucket overflowing with pride. I'd like to leave you tonight with the words from my neighbor, my brother, and one of our superstar learning leaders, Mr. Chad Jove. And Chad shared, in a world of chaos, our school is refuge for those young people who are the most weary, fearful, and disconnected. We make space in our day to build relationships in a way that puts the student in the center. Every student has a story, but every student does not have a voice. They have not spoken because they do not feel safe. There is no timeline for feeling safe. It is different for everyone. Some students find safety in the corner as observers. For others, being physical and moving with adults in sports is where they feel safe. Students move into safety by having consistent, caring adults welcome them into a world where everyone can find space to settle. Our goal is not to make students perfect. Our goal is to give students time to work through the numerous things that are complicating their lives. In our school, you will see community supports working alongside teachers because our students' world is bigger than the roof over their heads. And we're committed to growth mindset in ways that allow students to take risks that will improve their life chances. And risk looks different for everyone, but ultimately, by allowing students choice to create art, music, authentic learning, belonging, culture, and relationships, we are taking them to a place of growth. And our school is not for everyone. It's for those students who require supports that are built around compassion, understanding, and healing. And for those students, there's no better place to be. So simply put, we love our students. Before I field any questions, I'd like to thank each of you for helping create this beautiful, safe space. Hands are raised for trusting me to help lead it. Haisa EOSCM.
You're muted.
Thanks, Brett. You're muted, Chair.
Thank you very much, Brett. Your introduction was very beautiful. And I love how you've put the effort in to learn the language and share it. Trustees, do we have any questions? Yes, we'll start with Leanna. She has a comment, and then Chantel has a question.
Hi. Geez, Brett, every single time, holy, you're just amazing, and we're so lucky to have you, and so are the students. I wrote down a lot of those words of what you wrote, and I think I'm going to put them in my tiny notebook so I can reference them often. They're just absolutely beautiful, like compassion, understanding, and healing as the three main points. I mean, is there anything more beautiful? I'm just so proud. I don't have any questions. Whoops, sorry. I don't have any questions. I just need to share that, wow, just in awe and loving it, and feel so lucky that this is in our district. And yeah, thank you. That's all I got. You guys are the best.
Sorry, Naomi, I think you were muted again there, but I'm going to read your lips.
Yeah, I said Chantel.
Awesome, thank you. I can attest, that is a place of love. Yeah, like Leanna, I have tears. So I'm gonna try and get through that. what you have all built there is really something truly special. And I'm so happy you could do this presentation to share with everybody what's happening at Learning Out, because everybody needs to know how amazing it is, and hopefully that love grows. We have amazing staff in our district. Please don't get me wrong, amazing staff. But it's for folks who just need that inspiration sometimes, and I think you guys are it for those who may be feeling like, what do I do? It's like there. I so appreciate it, and the logistics of moving so many new students into that building. We know that's an aged building and things like that. And this is where I'm getting to my question now. Is what more should be on our radar as trustees when it comes to Learning Out, and what is needed to make that a better space for Learning Out, to make it functional? I mean, is the Wi-Fi working there? I know some folks have a hard time getting on, but how's that going, Brett?
No, I'd like to speak on behalf of all of our school staff, and it's just with a ton of gratitude. We sat in a circle as learning leaders this afternoon, and we all offered 2 stars and a wish of, how September has been. 6 programs all under one roof, and it far better than we as a team of leaders had anticipated. The care from the facilities team, the care from the Department of Learning Services, the love from your trustees, the sense of collective teacher efficacy was like sky high last year, but it's in the clouds now. It's beautiful. It is a place where you walk in and everyone wholeheartedly believes that kids can heal, grow, and learn way better together under one roof. So wouldn't change a thing. Every wrinkle I got in my forehead or crow's feet by my eyes, it's something I learned, and I'm proud to learn it, and honored to, get to lead it. So yes, thank you guys for making that happen. Thank you to all departments across the school district, because it was truly a collective move and not just us as a staff and families.
It was really a team effort. Thank you very much for everyone who was involved in that, for making it as painless as possible for everybody involved. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much to everyone. I raised my hands to all of you. Hi, Tsepka.
What happened here? Sorry. I just want to add, Brett, Leanne Lee said, we are blessed to have you in this role. And Mark Robinson said, love from trustees is earnest, hard not to love all that you have done and continue to do for the kids. And yeah, I'm really glad that your startup was so great, but I'm not surprised. I wish I could have worked with you longer than just 2 years, Brett. I saw how wonderful you were with particularly the vulnerable kids, the kids that need that love, And yeah, we're really, I'll just echo what Leanne said, we're so lucky to have you in this role and to have you in the district. So, and yeah, you do have a superstar teacher there in Chad. He's my neighbor too. But yeah, you have a wonderful staff. Thank you. Leanna says 2 stars and a wish is go to for our family and love that simple yet powerful practice. Is a go-to for our family. Oh, okay. All right. Thanks, Leanna. All right. I think that's it for our presentations. Thank you very much. And Don or Jackie, do you have anything to?
Nope, just appreciations to Brett and his team for the work they do, and we'll turn it back to you to move on to the next items on the agenda.
All right, so number 9 is correspondence referred from the regular board meeting, and it doesn't look like we had any. And number 10 is unfinished business, and 10.1, Mark Walsh, you're going to talk about Student Voice Ad Hoc Committee.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you, Chair. So this evening it's just a very brief update just to make sure that the board is aware of what's occurring with respect to its motion. So the memo is there that outlines the next steps. The chair has appointed membership, including trustee membership. We do have our representatives from various partner groups lined up, and our first meeting is tomorrow. 3 meetings are scheduled. Hopefully that will be sufficient to get a report drafted and brought back to this committee according to the direction of the board. So just an update to make sure that the public is aware. And you're on mute, Chair.
Mute. I'm really struggling with this mute button today. Mark would like to comment. Mark Robinson.
Thank you, Mark, for bringing this to the Education Committee. I'm really excited for tomorrow. This is butter on my bread. I'm just ready to roll up my sleeves. If anyone tonight's watching and want to ask questions, you can shoot us an email and see what we can do to get some feedback, because hopefully it's robust. And I think, yeah, you're right, Mark. I hope the 3 meetings is enough. If not, it's better for what do they say, quality rather than quantity. So but at the same time, if we need to do more, I'm willing to do more, Chair. So yeah, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Naomi.
Thank you.
Really excited.
And Chris Perrier-Everly says, excited to be part of this work and representing the NDTA. Awesome, Chris. Yeah, this was one of my passions, and I had it in my platform when I was running, was to have student voice in the district at the board level. So thank you very much for getting this organized. Moving on is a question period. Karen, do we have any questions? No questions. All right. Sorry, I was waiting for Karen to come on, and that's my pause there. All right, so announcements. This is the month of October, and it is Dyslexia and ADHD Awareness Month. So just so that everybody's aware of that. So do I have a motion to adjourn? And I do, from Leanne. Do I have a seconder? A seconder for adjournment? Mark is opposed. All those in, is there anyone else opposed? Okay, then I guess the meeting is adjourned. Oh.
Sorry, I think
I
that
didn't-
Mark had seen my message before you did. It's okay, Naomi. I just wanted to speak to the announcement.
Yeah, I didn't see it on there. I saw no questions, and then I saw Leanne. Yeah.
I know
Okay.
the messaging here is yeah, it gets all weird, and sometimes we should probably just jump on, I think sometimes, but it's okay. I just wanted to quickly highlight that that it is ADHD and Dyslexia Awareness Month, and how it is those 2 neurodevelopmental disorders are the most common ones that are diagnosed, and they're 2 of the most misunderstood disabilities that we have out there. And and it's funny too, because there are many celebrities that have it. We've got so many celebrities that are great role models, like Solange Knowles, Michael Phelps, Simone Biles, Ryan Gosling, our ADHD. We've got Keira Knightley, Steven Spielberg, Sir Richard Branson, Keanu Reeves, and Henry Winkler, who wrote the Hank Spitzer series. An amazing series of books for kids, especially those who have learning disabilities, who are different. They're just fantastic, wonderful books, and I highly recommend them to everybody. So yeah, I think everyone remembers who Henry Winkler is, maybe not. He was the Fonz on Happy Days. So Yeah, he's made some really great books for kids. So I just wanted to highlight that real quick. Thank you, Naomi, for letting me speak for a couple of moments about that, and I appreciate it. And I think now we can move to adjourn. Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, so we have a motion to adjourn from Leanne Lee. Do I have a seconder? And I believe Mark said that he would second it. Anybody opposed this time? Hi, kitty cat.
Oh, hello, kitty.
It doesn't look like anyone's opposed, but that cat is so big, Leanna. Holy. Yeah, all right. Anyways, the meeting, I believe, is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.